Yesterday, under a tree on a quiet hillside, I found a stray mother cat living inside an old broken bamboo basket. And beside her were 5 tiny newborn kittens. They were so small that they could barely move properly. Their eyes were still closed, and they kept crawling toward their mother, crying softly for milk. The mother cat looked exhausted. Her fur was dirty, her body was painfully thin, and her eyes were filled with fear and stress. But even in that condition, she still curled her body tightly around her babies, trying her best to protect them from the world. I gave her some food yesterday before leaving, but honestly, I couldn't stop thinking about her all night. Because one small meal is never enough for a stray mother cat with 5 newborn babies. She needs food constantly. She needs strength. She needs enough nutrition to produce milk for her kittens. Without help, I knew things could become dangerous very quickly for this little family. So early this morning, I decided to go back to the hillside and check on them again. Before going there, I stopped by a small store and bought cat food, chicken puree, ham, and milk. I know regular milk is not ideal for cats, but there were very limited options nearby, and I just wanted to give her something warm and filling. As I walked up the hill, the grass moved softly in the wind. The area was very quiet. Only the sound of insects and leaves could be heard. But the entire time, I kept worrying. What if the mother cat had moved somewhere else? What if something happened during the night? What if the kittens didn't survive the cold weather? The closer I got to the tree, the more nervous I became. And then finally, I saw the old broken basket again. They were still there. The mother cat was lying beside her babies, keeping them close to her body. And the 5 tiny kittens were still huddled together, sleeping against her stomach. I felt relieved immediately. But when I got closer, I realized the mother cat looked even more tired than yesterday. She barely moved at first. But the moment she noticed me approaching, her entire body became tense again. She quickly shifted herself in front of her kittens protectively. Like she was silently saying, "Please don't hurt my babies." I slowly crouched down and spoke softly to her. I didn't try to touch her. I didn't move too quickly. I just placed the food nearby and gave her some space. This time, she seemed to recognize me a little. She was still cautious, but not as terrified as yesterday. Her eyes stayed locked on me while she carefully sniffed the air. Then I opened the chicken puree. The moment she smelled it, her ears twitched immediately. She was hungry. Very hungry. But even then, she didn't rush to the food right away. First, she turned around and looked at her kittens. That moment honestly broke my heart. Because even while starving, her first instinct was still to check on her babies. After a few seconds, she slowly walked toward the food. She sniffed it carefully. And then suddenly, she started eating very fast. Faster than yesterday. She swallowed the food almost desperately, barely pausing between bites. It honestly looked like she hadn't had a proper meal in a very long time. I could even hear her quick breathing while she ate. Watching her like that made me realize how difficult survival must be for stray mothers. Not only does she have to survive for herself, she also has to stay alive for 5 tiny babies depending completely on her. Every single day, she probably searches for food while worrying about predators, weather, hunger, and danger. And despite all of that, she still keeps fighting for her kittens. While she was eating, the kittens slowly moved around beside her. Some of them were trying to nurse. But it was obvious the mother cat didn't have enough milk. The kittens kept crying softly while searching for food. It was heartbreaking to watch. These babies are so tiny and fragile. Right now, their entire world is their mother. And their mother is barely surviving herself. I poured some cat food into a small container beside her. This time, she didn't even wait for me to move away before eating. That small change made me strangely emotional, because it meant she trusted me just a little more today. Not fully, but enough to eat beside me. As she continued eating, I noticed just how skinny she really was. Her ribs were slightly visible beneath her fur. There were scratches near her ears. Her coat looked rough and dirty from living outside for so long. It's hard to imagine how a cat this weak is somehow still caring for 5 newborn kittens all alone. People sometimes forget that animals experience fear, stress, exhaustion, and love too. But when you sit quietly beside a stray mother protecting her babies, you can feel it clearly. She's scared. She's tired. But she refuses to give up on her children. After the cat food, I tore the ham into small pieces for her. The moment she tasted it, she paused for a second. Almost like she couldn't believe something tasted that good. Then she quickly continued eating. And while eating, I heard something very soft. Purring. Very quiet purring. Yesterday, this mother cat was too afraid to even relax near me. But today, while eating beside me, she was purring softly for the first time. That small sound made me unexpectedly emotional. Because maybe for a few minutes, she finally felt safe enough to relax. While she was eating, one of the tiniest kittens slowly crawled out from the blanket inside the basket. Its movements were weak and clumsy. It tried to walk forward, then immediately fell sideways into the cloth. I couldn't help smiling for a second. It was incredibly tiny. So tiny that it almost didn't look real. But then the mother cat immediately stopped eating, walked over, and gently picked the kitten up with her mouth. Very carefully. Very gently. She carried the kitten back beside the others and curled her body around them again. That moment stayed in my mind for a long time. Because no matter how hungry or exhausted she was, she still reacted instantly to protect her baby. A mother's instinct is truly powerful, even in animals. I also adjusted the cloth and old fabric inside the broken basket to make it a little warmer for them. The hillside gets cold at night, especially for newborn kittens. They are extremely vulnerable to cold weather. The mother cat watched me quietly the entire time. She didn't hiss. She didn't attack me. She simply observed carefully. It felt like she was slowly trying to decide whether I was safe. And honestly, gaining the trust of a stray animal is something very special. These animals survive by being cautious. Most of them have experienced fear, hunger, or cruelty from humans before. So when one slowly lowers its guard around you, even a little, it feels meaningful. I stayed there with them for quite a while. The wind moved softly through the grass around the tree. The kittens slowly fell asleep one by one. Tiny little bodies pressed together for warmth. And the mother cat lay quietly beside them, occasionally licking their heads gently. The entire scene felt peaceful and sad at the same time. A tiny hidden family surviving quietly beneath a tree on a lonely hillside. Before leaving, I placed extra food and water nearby so the mother cat would have something later. Then I slowly stood up and prepared to go home. As I turned around, the mother cat looked up at me again. But this time, her eyes felt different. Yesterday, they were full of fear. Today, there was still caution, but also something softer. Maybe recognition. Maybe relief. Maybe trust. I don't know. But I do know that today, she allowed me a little closer into her world. And honestly, I'll probably never forget her face. On the walk back home, I kept thinking about those 5 tiny kittens sleeping together inside that broken basket. And about their exhausted mother trying so hard to keep them alive. There are so many stray animals in the world living lives like this every day. Hungry. Cold. Invisible. Especially stray mothers with babies. Their lives are incredibly difficult. So if you ever see a stray animal one day, Even something small can help. A little food. A bowl of water. An old blanket. A cardboard box for shelter. Things that seem tiny to us can mean survival to them. We may not be able to save every stray animal in the world. But maybe we can make life a little less painful for one of them. And maybe that matters more than we realize. I really hope this mother cat and her 5 babies survive safely. And I hope one day, they won't have to sleep outside under a broken basket anymore.